Hello, I am Alessandro Mannucci. I'm a research fellow with Professor Goyle's lab at the Beckman Research Institute of City of Hope, California, and a gastroenterology fellow with Serafeli Hospital in Italy. And today it is my pleasure to discuss with you the results of the EMERALD multicenter study. You certainly already know that esophageal cancer is a highly lethal malignancy. In fact, it is the second most lethal GI malignancy, but it is also potentially preventable because it is closely linked to chronic gastroesophageal reflux disease and the development of Barrett's esophagus, which may progress to low-grade dysplasia, high-grade dysplasia, and ultimately esophageal adenocarcinoma. Now, this is a process that takes roughly 20 plus years. But despite this extended time frame for both screening and prevention, most cancer diagnoses occurred de novo, bypassing this window for preventive intervention. And in fact, it is highly significant to highlight that 80% of individuals with esophageal adenocarcinoma have no prior history of endoscopy. Now, this has led many scientific societies to propose that individuals with a higher risk of esophageal cancer and adenocarcinoma should undergo endoscopy-based screening. But the implementation of such screening programs does have certain challenges, some of which are of economic nature. For example, it has been estimated that such programs should cost in the range of thousands of millions of dollars. Moreover, it has been estimated that in order to diagnose a single case of esophageal cancer, one should test at least 400 individuals, which basically questions the whole cost effectiveness of these programs. So this is what brings us to the EMERALD study, which was centered on the development, training, and validation of a liquid biopsy built on cell-free microRNA to detect both esophageal adenocarcinoma and Barrett esophagus. EMERALD is short for esophageal microRNAs of Barrett adenocarcinoma and dysplasia, and this is a study that was registered and completed on clinicaltrials.gov. The EMERALD study enrolled close to 800 individuals from 4 countries, multiple institutes from the US, the Netherlands, Italy, and UK Ireland. Our initial approach led us to the identification of 14 microRNAs of potential diagnostic interest using the publicly available TCGA data. Now, before we transitioned our findings into the blood-based cohorts, we wanted to make sure that these biomarkers could truly identify individuals with both esophageal adenocarcinoma and Barrett esophagus. So we tested their validity in 3 more independent cohorts. So we used 3 more independent cohorts to finally select a panel of 6 blood-borne cell-free microRNAs, which had definitely potential for diagnosing both esophageal adenocarcinoma and Barrett esophagus with or without dysplasia. So with these 6 biomarkers in our hands, we then moved to the training phase of a liquid biopsy, where we used the stack machine learning algorithm, used XGBoost and AdaBoost together. And then once the assay was fully locked, we transitioned our findings into an independent, external, and final cohort, where we observed highly satisfactory results. The AUC value in this final cohort was 92%. The sensitivity for Barrett esophagus and esophageal adenocarcinoma was 82%, and the specificity was 91%. Interestingly, we also observed that there was a proportional relationship between the EMERALD values and the risk of having esophageal adenocarcinoma or Barrett esophagus. In fact, individuals with higher EMERALD values had higher risks of having Barrett esophagus or esophageal adenocarcinoma than those with low EMERALD values. So finally, because we started this conversation with cost effectiveness, we also conducted a Markov model simulation analysis to determine the most cost-effective strategy between 5 alternative options, which were our blood-based assay every 1, 3, or 5 years, endoscopy-based screening every 10 years, or no screening whatsoever. And eventually, we could observe that the most cost-effective strategy was to perform our blood-based assay every 5 years. So in conclusion, while there are no known invasive biomarkers for the early detection of esophageal adenocarcinoma and Barrett esophagus, we hypothesized that a blood-based test would complement screening options that are available and likely improve patient outcomes. So we have developed and independently validated a blood-based test for the early detection of both esophageal cancer and Barrett's esophagus in the largest multi-center cohort to date, an effort that involved institutes from 4 countries. So briefly, again, we identified 6 circulating microRNAs that were associated with the presence of Barrett's esophagus and esophageal cancer. We then used this panel of 6 biomarkers to train a diagnostic model, which we called EMERALD. Then we tested this assay into another cohort, largely composed of the FINBAR study participants, where the training efforts were basically replicable. Interestingly, we also observed that the screening program using EMERALD blood tests every 5 years should lead to the most cost-effective strategy. Now, naturally, this blood test could enrich the toolkit of methods available for esophageal cancer screening, but while the Markov model may support a more cost-effective approach with 5 yearly EMERALD-based screening, we still need a head-to-head study to actually provide definitive evidence on to guide clinical practice.